portraying speed or motion in a still image and illustration, it's really hard, because those two things go kind of against each other. It's how do you portray motion in a still image? So props for you to that you actually approach this whole thing. What I really like are the neon colors. It's pretty much in line with a lot of splash art, especially Valorant, who has more like these splashy, more saturated color schemes. I really like your like that you would put in intuitively, I guess, or consciously, like energy lines as a sort of graphical element to emphasize her speed. All these elements and also the texture you put in here, I really like. So I grabbed the 4 artworks I found in your Discord channel, but I think DJ also forwarded them to me.
Just to be sure.
And yeah, I just grabbed them, prepared them, and I think we can just go like one by one. And
right.
Yeah, I quickly glanced over them. I have some thoughts, but we'll just figure it out on the fly. So just to be safe, I'm gonna pop up a timer because I don't know where we're at timing wise. Oh, it's 1.5. Oh, we're at 90 minutes already, right?
Yeah.
Oh shoot. Okay, so I gotta keep them a bit shorter, right? So let me pull up a 5-minute timer then. Okay. So first thing I'm gonna say is that, or put out a little disclaimer. Everything I'm gonna say comes, like from my perspective, from my place. So take it with a grain of salt. Other people would probably give you different advice or in a different manner. But I can at least tell you what I see and I think could be optimized, right? So that being said, we have our first artwork here, which is by Reishi Draws. And the artwork title is Neon Splash Art, Valorant Fan Art. Oh, Valorant Fan Art, okay. So it's supposed to be splash art, and Valorant Fan Art.
Yeah.
Neon dashes through the city. I intend to highlight Neon's notable trait, which is speed and lightning. The need for speed. Overall composition and anatomy is optional, but once we look at. Okay, so 2 parts to my feedback. First part is I'm pointing out what I like about this whole thing, which is in this case, first of all, I really like the idea. Because painting something like this, and the fact that you actually try to approach this, because painting something like this is really, really hard. It's really not easy. It's one of the more difficult things you can actually do in illustration. Portraying speed or motion in a still image in illustration, it's really hard, because those two things go kind of against each other. It's how do you portray motion in a still image? So props for you to that you actually approach this whole thing. What I really like are the neon colors. It's pretty much in line with a lot of splash art, especially Valorant, who has more like these splashy, more saturated color schemes. I really like your like that you would put in intuitively, I guess, or consciously, like energy lines as a sort of graphical element to emphasize her speed. All these elements and also the texture you put in here, I really like. So that's the first part. Now to what I think can be improved. The overall composition is okay. Let me put up. Is good, but there are some issues I see. The first thing is that the character itself has some anatomical issues. For example, the head is a bit too big compared to the rest of the body. I think her torso is fine, but could technically be extended a bit further, just to emphasize the female form. But this is more minor sort of nitpick. But the head should technically be smaller in comparison to the rest of the body. What's good here, I really like the material rendering here on the leather dress. But at the same time, you've got some also lighting issues. The lighting here on that part is really, really good, right? And and it sort of implies that you have a like a front light coming towards it. You have some sort of thank you LinkedIn. You have some sort of backlight, and you have these as light sources, right? Which is pretty difficult to balance all this. The typical cinematic lighting is you have a key light, which is probably coming from the direction you set out this light here. Then you have a fill light, which is coming from the other side, just to fill out, like the rest of the form in the shadow. And most of the time, you have a backlight, which often creates something like a rim light, something like you have here. So the way I would do this, because what I see is if I look at this here, the overlap. You try to emphasize the fact that I think it's a bit more than 5 minutes.
It's all good.
Yeah, I tend to ramble. Sorry. The fact that what's really good is that you want to show the overlap of the hand over her upper torso, right? With a drop shadow. That's really good. The issue here is the way the drop shadow itself is so small, like it's so close to the hand itself that it looks like the hand is almost sitting on her chest, right? So that's one thing you could technically want it, or it could technically be having been your intention. English, I know words. You could have intended to do this, right? But since your overall intention is to create more speed and more energy, I think it would be a really weird pose, sort of, if I would be running mid motion and my hand is sort of more or less unnaturally lying on my chest, if that makes sense. And also the leg placement, sort of, it's cute. I like this, and I also really like the rendering on those legs, but they're so close together that it's almost looking like she's more like sliding like across some surface rather than running, right? So what you actually want to do in this case, obviously I can't make it an entire cool looking paint over, but what you actually want to do is try to change the dynamic of the whole thing first, because the reason why it looks like she's sliding across some slope or something is because all those lines here, all those like energy lines, are also basically more or less like going straight into one direction, right? So the energy of the whole piece suggests to me that she's just like going this way, right? And for speedy characters, it's almost always better if you have them dynamically come towards the viewer from the background somehow, right? So it's better to create something like this motion coming from here up that way. And I'm a big fan of using, like graphical elements whenever I get the option to do it. In this case, like lightning elements. But I think you could use them in a more dynamic way, right? So you could set out a certain curve you want to go. So let's say that's the basic energy direction you want to go, right? So what's good for scenes like these is create a Dutch angle. It automatically creates a sort of filming angle. If your horizon would be straight, you can set it up upwards or downwards, and in a Dutch angle your horizon is sort of tilted, right? And it's a way that's often used in cinema to create or to emphasize tense scenes, like action scenes, right? So that's good that you chose a Dutch angle. And yeah, I would decide for a direction you want your character to come from, and sort of go something like play around with the perspective, and have her one leg maybe be in mid motion coming up, right, and their other leg be something like this, right? And obviously I would need to look up certain references, right? How you're actually posed, or the poses actually work during running. But yeah, that's the basic idea, right? So, but the thing is, to rework the whole composition at this point, I wouldn't do that. That's just feedback I would take for the next piece. What I would do here is just slight adjustments, mainly having this drop shadow be way more distant to the actual body, so her hand appears more distant to her torso. I would decide on specific lighting directions, because right now the lighting is coming all over the place, which makes the character look a bit flat, right? But that's just, I think my tip overall would be look up reference, because it's always a good thing, or never work without reference, let's put it that way. And also if it comes to light, right? So if we would follow the main light direction you set out, right, we could technically sort of tone down the light that's emanating from her fingers, make it a little bit more subtle, so we can further emphasize the actual light that's... Why isn't it painting? Hello? Thank you. Where's my brush work? Oh my god, I've got it on a darkened layer. Smart Simon. And can actually paint around with the light coming from this direction, right? And work a bit on soft and hard edge transitions, because what I saw here, for example, is you have a really clean, hard edge on the lower part of your eyes, of your eyelids. And usually the way that goes is it's sort of, if the light is coming from that direction, right, it sort of fizzles out towards the middle. A lot of illustration is just playing around with the like hard and soft edges, just to create visual interest, right? And so these are like small things I would probably do to immediately improve this one here. Also, be mindful of shadow colors. For example, you used this color here for the because I blended it out. This color here for the shadow part, right? But on this side you used like a green, which is probably due to you using some form of color dodge or overlay effect. But the way that it actually would work is the shadow color would be this, but since this is a light source, that's where the hard part comes in. It also emanates into the shadow, right? So the shadow would actually be lit up by the blue light. So the blue will tint the shadow in combination with the local color of the, I suppose, gold trims here or gold plating, right? So that's also the way I go about it. I first define the local colors of whatever I'm painting, right? And then I look at the light color. Okay, do I have warm light or like cool light coming in my scene? And then in this case, I'm looking at tertiary light sources or the secondary light sources, I guess, and see, okay, I've got a blue light, so this shadow here would also be lit up by well, sort of blue, but not as much, because not that much that the shadow would completely disappear, because the light source coming from this direction is way stronger than that light source, because neon lights usually don't tend to spread their light that far, if that makes sense. Except you have very reflective surfaces, then it spreads a little bit more far. So yeah, I would personally look at material rendering, at light a bit more. Also look, try to look up different Valorant, if you not already have done this. Like splash outs from Valorant or Riot, and but I assume you did, because that's these are very, very much like Valorant, these effects here, which I like. Also, one final thing, because I think I have to get to the next one. The background in this case here, I know what you wanted to do. You probably wanted to have these compositional lines here contrast these lines, right? Which is good thinking. It's a good intuition, right? You usually use this to create visual tension at the crossing points of like compositional lines. That's a good tool to use to emphasize your actual focal area. Not so much, points where you don't want your viewer to actually look. So in this case, I would think about maybe playing around with perspective a bit more, since your overall goal is to emphasize speed in this painting, and having like a cityscape which has more or less standard 3-point perspective to it, in my opinion, works against it. Because all these lines don't have that much energy to them, if that makes sense, right? So I would probably choose a composition that's more like dynamic, so that, I don't know, you have those buildings sort of, it's really hard to come up with this on the fly. Have these buildings more in more in perspective, right? But it's a good piece. It's a good piece nevertheless. Yeah. As I said, tackle lighting a bit, look at material, because you show that you understand certain materials like leather. Some other materials like this gold, for example, could be worked on further, in my opinion. When it comes to the general composition and anatomy, I would probably look at reference from actual runners, because I think there's some issues here, like the head being a bit too large. But the overall, basic anatomy is pretty fine. And everything I said in terms of composition. But composition is something you would probably need to tackle in a like different new artwork, right? So yeah, is that good?
Yeah. Oh no,
Do
is
they hate me
she?
now?
Is she saying no? She was saying thank you. She got a master
Okay.
class in
Yeah.
lighting.
The thing with composition also is want to tackle most of these problems as
Mm.
early on as possible. Language. So the one advice I can give is learn not to be in love with your own art. Meaning, being able to call a piece done, especially if you're still at the stage where you're learning art. I mean, you're always learning art. I'm still learning art. Everybody's still learning art. But if you're still at a stage where you're, having a hard time with certain fundamentals, because in the end everything comes down to fundamentals, then I wouldn't be so precious about your pieces, but rather would approach them like, okay, I have a cool idea for, like, in this case, a speedy character for a splash art style artwork. I want to see where my skills are at and push it as far as I can, right? And once I'm at the point where I don't know what I can improve any further, I call it done and lay it to the side, right? And try to learn from the mistakes I did in this artwork rather than trying to improve, and constantly fiddle around with it, but rather try to, at least that's how I approach it.
Yeah.
Take what I learned from my current piece into the next piece, right? And the mindset, what really helped me in developing this mindset was that moment. It was kind of a, let's say, like, mind blown moment for me when I realized, what, drawing or slash painting is nothing else than thinking out loud on paper, or I guess in this case on a digital canvas. But it's just thinking out loud. Nothing keeps you from trying out stuff. Nothing keeps you from scrapping stuff if it doesn't work. Nothing keeps you from overpainting over stuff if you don't like it anymore. It's just, like, instead of thinking about what you gonna draw, you just sort of, or at least that's what I do, I outsource my thinking process into the drawing process, right? And that way I don't get too hung up on my own art. Obviously I still have those moments where I'm like, oh, that's cool. But I would say I can move past them pretty easily, and just let it stew for, like, I don't know, 1-2 weeks. Look back at it and try to evaluate your own work. Try to see what you did good, what you did bad, and take that into your next artwork, right? And rinse and repeat. And after a certain time, you're becoming a master artist, right? Anyways, so much for my little inspirational speech here.
No, thank
On
you
to
for
the next
that.
one.
Yeah, she's one of our young students here. She's one of our young guns,
Okay.
so
Oh,
she really
can I
appreciates that.
ask
Yeah.
how old she is?
Oh, she's around 20, 21, 22. Yeah, in uni.
Oh, you've got plenty of time. Got
There we
plenty
go.
of
You
time.
heard it. Oh, she
Yeah.
was worried about that because she shifted courses. So there you
No,
go.
no.
Is she?
The
You heard it
the
from
thing is,
Sam.
yeah. Sorry. The thing is, what I constantly see with other people and know from myself as well is impatience with your own progress. Right? It's one thing, and it's a big thing, and sort of stifling your own, or sort of almost standing in your own way because you're being too precious about your current work, right? And the reason why I went on this short inspirational tangent is because I felt it's important for people to know and realize that at the end of the day, what you want to develop, if you practice art, is your artistic eye, your artistic intuition, and the skills in the process. The artworks you put out during the process, they're nice, they're fine, but they're not what it's about, right? At that stage, obviously it's something different if you work professionally for a client later on, right? So I just wanted to give sort of a mental tool, if you will, that could help you speed up your own process and approach it with a more playful and lighthearted way. Because if you're in the playful mood, if you play around, if you're playing, you learn best, in my opinion. So yeah, I wouldn't get too hung up on work that you're either personally not satisfied with, or like other people either like or don't like or criticize, whatever. It's just it's all personal process. Anyways, okay, I guess I scrap the timer for now because I still keep on rambling. On to the next one. Yeah, on to the next one. So this
Our
one here,
senior citizen. I mean, our senior artist. I was a junior. I was a student. Now it's a senior artist here. Ella. This is Ella's work.
And you can absolutely see that. Congratulations, Ella.
Yeah, Ella.
Okay. Well, congratulations, Ella. It's very, very, very good. My first impression when I looked at it is there's not much to say here in terms of rendering. You've got all your materials basically sorted out. You can see a clear difference between the like the the leather at on the books versus the paper versus like the fur. I also really like, from what I understand, it was for a it was for art jam where the task was to basically mash two creature types together, right? So it was a it was a dragon and a cat, right? As a familiar, right? Okay, good nature familiar. So I really like the basic lighting setup you put in here, like letting the key light coming from, again, from that direction, right? So that it hits the whole body where we are actually, as a viewer, are looking, and you're that way, because the light is wrapping around the forms. You can actually emphasize, the shapes and the materials in a way that's interesting to look at. I also like that you came up with the secondary light source in form of the candle. So it was easier to create a rim light and a sort of fill light, I guess, or maybe the fill light is more or less the global light here, gray. But I think it functions as a fill light. To further emphasize the form, it's an easy trick, you guys. To have a form lighted from this direction, right? So that I guess I could just quickly paint it. Have a simple form lighted, from sort of the top right or the top left, right? Then you have like the Terminator shadow here, and then you create something like then you have a rim light. It's a easy 1, 2, 3 punch to create very compelling, visually very, very compelling, and sellable and marketable art. So that's very good. As I said, I really like the materials. I really like the way you merge these two elements together, like the dragon scaly like feet and parts of limbs. The inner body, or the like the belly regions, also like dragon scales, as well as the face, which has like a dragony mouth but cat eyes. All in all, very good. The only thing I think that can actually be improved on is a pretty boring one. That is this whole area here, the fur area, which is awesome. Really good rendering here. And you also got really good flow of, like certain lines. I guess you could technically vary a bit in size when it comes to actual hair strains, because now that I look closer at it, that's wrong. You want to vary more between like bigger and big, medium, small shapes. That's like the very basic design principle, where you want to create like a big shape, a medium shape, and a small shape, and you want to have it in a 60 30 10% ratio ideally. So that's something that's also very prevalent in graphic design and in graffiti. I always try to make my styles have like two main colors, one primary, one secondary, and then we call it a kicker color. I guess it's then just like a like feature color, which is prevalent here. You have sort of can I thank you, Photoshop? That's what I wanted to do. That's all good. Which is good because you have like the blue and the turquoise and the sort of warm yellowish tones as a sort of kicker color. The thing is, it's a bit too the transition between the neck fur and the rest of her body is not that clear around that edge. So when you look at it from on a small size, it sort of looks like it's a minor tweak, but it sort of looks like you have this shape here, which is attached to this shape, right? And then you have the head sort of pop out of this shape, right? A super easy fix would be to have this part of her body, like this furry part here, actually extend on this side of her, this edge of her body, right? And sort of make the transition a bit softer between the neck hair and the base body fur. Sorry. And maybe let it, at the transition areas, let it like pop through a little bit. Obviously, you need to look at, look up how you would actually want to do this. But the basic idea I would suggest is having this, making this transition area here. Putting in a transition area here, so it follows more the basic construction principle of here is basically the inner side of the body. Here's the like the scaly part. Here's the furry part. So that's this part and that's this part. I think you can improve it a little bit with this, but it was already a very, very awesome, piece. Just this little thing, yeah. So besides that, I can't really say much. Your material renderings are on point. Your values are on point. Yeah, it's good.
Thank you for that. And Ella says thank you as well. Right after she server mutes me for calling her a senior citizen. Oops.
I guess now that I look at it, because now that I see these parts here, I guess you could also try to go the other way around and make the transition that way. However you prefer, but I think the other way would be more natural, right? Anyways, yeah. So that's for this.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
Who's our next?
Okay.
Mint.
I gotta sip real quick here.
Go ahead. I believe this is from Mint.
It's pretty cool. I have a question. You did this with 3D mainly, right? Or with a lot of
Oh,
3D?
the artist,
Or
yeah. As far as I know, Mint did this with 3D.
oh, he's not here.
Oh, he's here in the audience, but there's a
Oh,
bit
okay,
of
okay.
delay in the chat.
Oh,
So
sure,
yeah.
sure, sure,
Oh
sure.
yes,
Yeah,
so he says he used ZBrush, Blender, and Photoshop.
yeah, that's what I thought. That's super cool. It's a totally viable way to do it. Uh, Granted, since you put in D&D art, if you work with 3D as a base, you gotta put in a little bit of effort in the post processing sort of phase, or in the paint over phase. You gotta put in a little bit of more effort to make it look painterly, right? So, but that's, in my opinion, not really the issue here. So the artwork title is Dwarf Gunslinger. It's supposed to be sort of Dungeons and Dragons esque art, describing a confident dwarf character in a monster. Like, I assume he's stuck in a leviathan of some sort, and this leviathan has, like, a lot of creepy monsters living in him. Oh no, it's a domain. Okay, so I learned something. Just keep on reading, Simon. Monster domain, right? Specific points, composition, storytelling, lighting, general improvements. So, my short answer here is that would be really cool as an establishing shot for like this realm, this monster domain itself. Where it doesn't work is if it's about the dwarven gunslinger. And the reason why is, first of all, it looks really, really cool. I like the way you work with the subsurface scattering here in the pistols. Yeah, you could technically say, okay, to make it more realistic, you towards the tail end of the pistol, you would actually need to paint the pistol itself, because right now it looks like the whole thing is one big piece of metal and glowing like super hot, which would make his hands like go up in flames technically if he wasn't a dwarf, I assume. So because guns are especially these old school dwarven like pistols, you have a wooden part, right? And then you have a metal part that's sitting in it where where the shooting part happens. I'm sorry if I botch a lot of terminology, but I'm not the most proficient in
Weapon
certain
design.
like weaponry terms, whatever. So there are certain materials prevalent in a gun, and it's like having the metal part of I guess you can't really see it on this background here. Having the metal part of the gun, glow or light up because it's heated, like heated metal. It looks cool, and it's absolutely believable. But on the other hand, like the wooden parts that's of the pistol would actually go up in flames. So which is fine in fantasy, I guess you could explain it away. But right now, at least visually, it looks like he's holding like super hot 5,000 degree hot metal in his hands. And but maybe he's a super dwarf, and he can withstand the heat. The real but yeah, I like it. The real issue, in my opinion, is if you want to make this whole piece about this dwarf, you chose a very unfavorable composition, because this format, this aspect ratio, plus we looking at him from behind into like the area and the well-lit monsters is something you would actually do when you're establishing a scene, right? Because the character is not of importance or interest. You don't. I guess the basic, the golden rule or the basic rule of thumb is if you want to show a character, never show him from the back, and not in a 16:9 or 20:9 aspect ratio where he's sort of small in the frame, but the other elements, like take up so much space, so much more space than he does, right? So this worm, this monster, this monster, this monster, they all look really, really cool, but they're so much bigger than this little dwarf, right? So if it would be, if it's supposed to be about the gunslinger, I would probably I've locked this. Do something like this, maybe. And or maybe have it, yeah. First of all, change the aspect ratio, and then take the gun slinger, make him way bigger, and show him from the front. Obviously, you would have to change the composition or the pose a bit, and make him basically the main player of your image, if that makes sense, right? So, but the way it is set up right now, the way it is set up right now, the realm he's in is basically the main player of the image. So I would say either recontextualize the image, say, okay, it's about the monster domain and not necessarily about the gunslinger. Or for your next artwork, if you want to portray a cool hero character or hero class for D&D, go with a vertical composition, like this, and show them from the front, never show them from the back. That's a big no-no if you want it to be, because the reason behind this is psychologically, we as a viewer, if you look at that picture, if we see a character from behind, we sort of subconsciously assume he's walking into the scene. So we're walking with him into the scene. So especially in combination with this aspect ratio, it sort of gives off the impression that we as a viewer are walking into this huge realm of monsters, and that the whole establishing shot here is about the monsters, right? And it's absolutely no problem if it's supposed to be about the monsters, right? But I'm just saying, if it's supposed to be about the gunslinger, you have to go a different way right from the get-go. And yeah, so vertical composition, show them from the front, and make sure that they are the focal point, right? But I like your instincts here. Very dramatic lighting, big plus. A lot of energy, big plus. Yeah, that's my 2-3 cents for this.
Some sage feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Who's our next?
All right. On to the last one, I guess.
It's from Pow. There we go.
Yeah. Okay, it's getting a little bit reflecty here. Give me a second.
Oh, sure. Oh, it's the sunlight.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the reason why I need that many lights, because I have everything darkened down in this area of the room because of all the sunlight coming from there, which isn't good if your screens are set up that way. Anyways, okay. So, artwork title: Year of the Rabbit. Description and intention of your work. Illustration credit for the Year of the Water Rabbit. That's very cool. I've also been born in the year of the rabbit, 1 month away from the year of the dragon, which I'm pretty mad about, but whatever. Entirely of water, jumping ahead of the tiger. Cool idea, cool concept. Who's the zodiac animal? How to make the illustration more interesting and dynamic? What elements to add or remove the illustration more appealing and catching a viewer? All right. Okay. So, first thing that stuck out to me is you obviously looked at water reference, which is good. Like probably forest, a lake in a forest. I especially like playing around with water in that way, because the wavy reflections can be a super cool visual element. What I also like is the way you approached like the water, because water is very, very difficult, or like splashy water, or the way you use water here is very, very difficult to paint, because water in itself is a completely transparent element. All the color water ever has, it gets from its surrounding, right? From reflections. So for everyone out there, the reason the ocean is blue is because of the sky. Not because water is blue. So that's good. I can see you understand how light basically works with water, which is the Fresnel effect, right? For everyone who doesn't know, it's the Fresnel effect, to bore you with more theory here. Let's say Mr. Simon standing here, right? And has a little walking stick here and some cape. Woo. And this is land. We're looking at it from the side, obviously, and here's water, right? So the Fresnel effect basically says the steeper the angle I look at a surface, or the more flat, I guess, more flat the angle I look at a surface, the more reflective it becomes to my eye, right? So, or let's say, everything from here on is water, right? So when I look in this direction at the edge of the water here, I have a very, because everything from the surrounding area will be reflected on, basically, because water is basically like a mirror. You can extrapolate the angle at which from which certain elements will be reflected on the water, right? So, and the more sharp this angle is, the more transparent, in case of water, the more transparent the water becomes, and the more can see through the water to the ground, right? But the I guess I can just erase this. But the farther away I look, right, the wider the angle, or the flatter, basically, the angle I look at the surface becomes, and the more reflective this part of the water is in regards to its surrounding. So, in a nutshell, everything. If I stand at a lake and I look at the close to me down the ground, I can see through the water, and the further away I look, the more reflective it becomes, right? And this is true for every object that has some sort of reflectiveness to it, which is basically every object, because object material, or the way the object material actually is just consisting of reflectiveness, opaqueness, or / transparency, and texture. And so the reason why I explained this is, following the form of the rabbit here, who Sorry, I forgot the name.
How?
Pow. Understood the Fresnel effect interacting with water at least intuitively, ideally consciously, understood the Fresnel effect because he understands. Okay, the form has this of the rabbit. The rabbit body has this shape, right? If we were like wrap a mesh around it. So me as a viewer looking at this edge here is basically from a side view a way wider angle, way flatter angle than me looking at this part, because that's more like, if this were the side view, I'm looking at this part of the body like straight in a 90 degree, or not 90 degree, but just straight, and the further curves away when I look at this part here, right? So everything from this side here will be more or less reflected, and here is nothing it can be reflected off, so we look through. So that's good that you did that. The main issue in terms of the overall composition here, my opinion, is that it's generally too dark. I see why you did this. You decided on a darker background, in this case, like a forest line in shadows, to make the highlights of the water really pop, right? The problem here is these highlights are so minuscule and very delicate and small in the bigger picture that if you zoom out and sort of squint your eyes, it just becomes sort of a huge, like almost like an array of noise, if that makes sense. But it's really, really easy fixable. The thing with fantasy art is we can sort of bend the rules of reality a little bit just to make images more appealing visually, and that's often our task, especially as an illustrator. So yes, you should always come from a point of like rooted in reality, but at a certain point you have to make certain compositional and aesthetic decisions that technically wouldn't make sense, like in the real world, but are necessary for the image to work. So that was a very long-winded way to say the values here in the background and the values in the rabbit are too similar and too dark. So there are two ways you can go about this. You can either say, okay, I'll lighten up the background, which would be okay. It's not. Which would be like logical in terms of atmospheric perspective, right? The further an object is away from us, the more it sort of disappears into the like air particles of the atmosphere. That's why hence it's called atmospheric perspective. It's also why, because most of the light that's going through the atmosphere is blue light. Most of the red light is filtered out because of the angle the light is hitting our atmosphere. It's basically the Fresnel effect again. So the flatter the light hits the atmosphere, because the Earth is a sphere, whatever, the more of the red spectrum, the outer spectrums like red and ultraviolet, actually come through the atmosphere. It's also the reason why sunrises and sundown skies are so more red than like midday sky. So atmospheric perspective, most objects would be getting lighter in value and more bluish because of what I just explained. So you can lighten up the background just to make it pop a bit more. Maybe just less. it's obviously not perfect, but it's just to illustrate the point, right? To make it pop. The other way around would be to put in some like blue reflections, which I personally would go. That's the route I would go, or not reflections, but putting in more like form emphasizing, letting the light wrap around it a bit more, which technically wouldn't make sense, I know, but just to emphasize the form of the rabbit a bit more, right? So that he better pops from the background. Yeah, so probably I don't know, like this. So that's the one thing. The other thing is if the rabbit is supposed to be followed by the tiger. Oh yeah, gotta wrap up soon. We're at half hour over. The other thing is the tiger seems to be really small. I get it. It's far away on the other side of the river. But since it's such a big contrast in terms of color temperature between the green and the orange, it really draws focus, even though he's so small. So my eyes are actually drawn here instead of here. So either make this one pop with some cool colors. You can even decide, okay, I want to not have it be water, but more like an oily type, and put in some like chromatic aberrations and chromatic effects that are typical for oil. If you look up, like oily, light reflections, that's super cool and a good way to put in, to punch in some colors, and go about it that way, and then maybe something like that. I don't know. Just finding opportunities. Finding opportunities to put in more visual interest around the rabbit area without it putting the viewer off too much, right? You can bend reality, as I said. And I think, going with some more oily material type and putting in some chromatic reflections or aberrations could be cool, but it's really hard though. Or just simply lighting this whole thing up the way I did here, can I please? Oh, that's the eraser. Thanks. Or just lighting it up the way I did here. That's one way. And now the thing with the tiger, I don't know. Maybe I would think about I locked them. Yes, smart Simon. Right. Okay. Make them a bit bigger. Maybe tone down the orange a bit, and thinking about maybe cutting out a bit of the image, right? So it's more in line with with either like a golden ratio composition or like a rule of thirds composition, right? So yeah, that's my 2 cents for this. Also, you can play around with more dabbled light here, or some light rays even coming through. Now that I look at it, right? So you can say, I don't know, I go to full color dodge mode here and let some light rays
that's cool.
come through here, right? Even make them lighter. It's probably too light. So, and that way you can emphasize his form even more. Just play around with different light and opportunities to put in more colors, or more ways to make this focal element of your image pop, right? All right, I think that's it.
Pao is. I'm not sure if Pao is in the audience, but they'll see this in the recording. So thank you for that. Thank you for all of those. Actually, those were
Yeah,
great requests.
obviously they're not as elaborate and cool looking good, yeah, as all those
Oh
Forrest email
no,
pieces and Anthony
no, man,
Jones, whatever.
you're being modest. Once again, thank you so much.
Oh, you're
I
welcome.
don't think we have any more questions. They ask everything, especially the Kratos and Atreus one. That was a big priority for them. I saw like a lot of people spamming the comments.
Yeah, if you've got
Yes,
any questions,
can they? Oh, so in your what are your socials? Where can the people find you? What's up with you, and how can they support you?
pretty much everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky. But that's just like running on the side, I guess. um, on Kara, which is a new thing.
Oh
I
yeah,
guess you
the
heard
new
about it, right?
Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say Instagram. It's more like a new art station with robust social features.
Okay.
It's people misconfuse this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I really hope I'm rooting for Kara. I hope that it's that someday becoming what ArtStation was supposed to be back in the day. And but yeah, also on ArtStation obviously, and my portfolio page, simonpape.com.
Right. And if people have questions, can they slide into your DMs and ask? Are they? Oh, you're in our
Sure, if
Discord
time.
server. Yeah,
Sorry,
you're in our Discord server.
I'm in
Can
your
they?
Discord server. Yeah, sure. You can at least try to hit me up. I can't promise that I reply
No
like
problem.
immediately or
Yeah.
because of work. I think. Oh, yeah, I forgot Twitch. My Twitch is a little bit dormant at the moment because of all the like NDA work I had this year. But back winter last year, I streamed for a bit, and I plan when things get settle down a little bit. I'm thinking about streaming again, and if so, you can always hop into the chat, and ask me questions because I actually really like to help people, right?
Oh, thank you
And
so much.
that's
There you have it, guys. This has been Simon Pape or Simon Pape in our English language. Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
joining
Justin
us.
Umali, for having me. It was a real pleasure and a real honor.
Ah, thank you. Once again, you are a foreign guest, number 2 in the annals of Brushpoint history. And with that, we can cap it off. Thank you guys and good night. We hope you've had a great time with us and join us again next week for our next guest.
If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much. But if you're still looking for more ways you can learn, just head on down to our website at brushpoint.io, where you can watch behind the scenes of this video, watch our live interviews and artist interviews a week earlier, art processes, tutorials, art talks, and lives every single Friday, and even a way to join our Discord community. Just check out that website. Well, that's it. If you want to share this knowledge, well, share with your friends. Like the video, and of course, subscribe if you want more content like this. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.